A surprising report from Israel today where officials are taking seriously a recent upsurge in spitting and hitting attacks on clergy and the vandalism of Christian sites.
Christians in Jerusalem's Old City say they've been repeatedly assaulted. So how are Christian leaders responding? CBN's Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
The situation led Israeli President Isaac Herzog and Police Commissioner Yaakov Shabtai to meet leaders of the Orthodox and Catholic churches of the Holy Land.
In recent months, we've seen very serious phenomena towards the Christian denominations in the Holy Land. Our brothers and sisters, Christian citizens, feel attacked in their places of prayer, in their cemeteries, and on the streets.
Christians in Jerusalem's Old City say they are often harassed, spit on, and even physically attacked by religious Jewish youth.
I view this phenomenon as extreme and unacceptable in any shape or form. This phenomenon needs to be uprooted.
Earlier incidents include the desecration of a Protestant cemetery on Mount Zion, an attack on international Christians during a day of prayer for Jerusalem, and harassment at a Messianic concert in Jerusalem.
We must respect the members of all religions. We've committed to this since the dawn of our existence. This is the most basic commandment of love your neighbor as yourself.
Church leaders expressed their desire to work together with Israeli authorities.
We need to work together in order to encourage coexistence and solidarity between us, and the love between us, because we are brothers in the same state. We live in the same places, and we need to live together in quiet and peace.
So, a Vatican bishop and the president of Israel talking about working together for quiet and peace? Oh, you mean like it's prophesied in 1 Thessalonians 5? And just because the religious Jewish youth is attacking the clergy? Is this the real reason why the Vatican representative is overseeing this whole thing? Or could it be that the Romans, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, the clergy are working with the modern-day Jewish Pharisees again? Just like it was when Jesus walked on this earth. Nothing has changed. And who were the ones that crucified Christ? It was the Romans and the Jews. Therefore, let all the house of Israel know assuredly that God hath made that same Jesus, whom ye crucified, both Lord and Christ. But they cried out, away with him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, shall I crucify your king? The chief priests answered, we have no king, but Caesar. Modern day Caesar is the Pope, and the ultimate Pope will be the Antichrist. Do you see now how it all ties together?
Recently, Israeli Channel 13 reporter Yossi Eli went undercover as a priest for a day. Dressed in a robe, he walked through the Old City with Franciscan Father Alberto. In the first 5 minutes, he was spat at 5 times by Orthodox Jewish Israelis. In Haifa, Israel's police commissioner said the police are working to eradicate incidents and trends that affect the sense of security.
We're here to reassure you of that and to offer any assistance that may be required. As part of the cooperation between all the parties, we're working to bridge the gaps in places of conflict, while simultaneously striving to provide the vital sense of security.
Now let me ask you, do you know who are the real owners of the Temple Mount? Who could have real estate in Jerusalem? I wonder.
And as I look at the little bitty building that is called Fort Antonio today, it's almost laughable to believe that 6,000 soldiers and some 4,000 camp followers occupied that tiny building.
Would Rome, the proud rulers of Europe and the Middle East, be content to locate their fort as an appendage to the Jewish temple? Or would they be more likely to commandeer the entire Temple Mount to build their regional military headquarters? Again, we turn to historian Josephus.
Now, as to the Tower of Antonia, it might seem to be composed of several cities. For if we go up to this Tower of Antonia, we gain the city, since we shall then be upon the top of the hill.
The only location that is on top of a hill and is large enough to house 10,000 soldiers and support staff is the 36-acre Temple Mount. In 333 AD, the so-called Bordeaux pilgrim traveled to Jerusalem and describes what he found.
I'm in a high tower about 100 feet high right next to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and it's a fascinating place because from this position, the Bordeaux pilgrim said that he looked due east and all he could see was the long wall of a Roman fort. When I look due east of here, all I see is the long wall of the Temple Mount. So what I think the Bordeaux pilgrim was describing was looking at the Roman fort from this spot. In fact, that's pretty conclusive. That's what he was looking at, was the Temple Mount complex. Certainly, I believe, was a Roman fortress that housed the 10th Roman Legion.
So if historical evidence places the Roman fort on the Temple Mount, why do the majority of people believe that this is where the temple was located?
When it was over with and the temple was destroyed by Titus in 70 AD, that it was just like a field with blowing grass. You wouldn't even know that it was there. And so the Jews who were quarantined from Israel for so long, it's hard for them to determine where the temple was. So this has been the place that everybody settled on. In fact, in the 4th century, there was many places that people were trying to figure out, where is the temple really located? People were not sure.
One important event that promoted the idea of the Temple Mount being the location of the temple was the invasion of Jerusalem by the Crusaders.
And in 1099, there was thousands of Crusaders, and they came and they conquered this Temple Mount complex. And when they went on top of it, there was great carnage. A lot of Jews, a lot of Muslims were killed. And they crawled up on the dome. It wasn't gold then, but they crawled up on that dome area up there, and they ripped off the crescent moon, and they replaced it with a cross, and they called it Templum Domini, which means the temple of God. That, I think, started a tradition.
70 years after the Crusaders conquered Jerusalem, and 1100 years after Herod's temple was destroyed, a Jew from Spain named Benjamin of Tudela visited Jerusalem and wrote that the Temple Mount was the location of the former temples. His emphatic statement seemed to seal the tradition, and from that point on, it has been virtually unchallenged.
Well, I believe that this is not the place of Solomon's temples and Herod's temples, but it's actually in the city of David, a few thousand feet south of here. And we're going to go to the city of David right now, and we're going to try and see if that is the true place where God tells us the temples were located.
You are Jew? No. I have no time to lose with you.
Now that one rabbi came up to me afterwards off camera and said, your Jesus Messiah is a liar. And that's why we are not going to ever accept Christianity. Because Jesus is a liar. You know, because it says in Matthew 24, then Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came up to show him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said to them, do you not see all these things? Assuredly, I say to you, not one stone shall be left here upon another that shall not be thrown down. Not one stone. What do you see there? You see more than one stones? Well, that goes around there for about a mile. You took all and measured all the sides. So one of the biggest monoliths existing today in the history of the world. So Jesus says not one stone will be there. And look at this. Look what we have today, this huge monolith. It should be flattened, because we have the other ancients have written about the temple being completely and totally destroyed. In fact, Titus in 70 AD destroyed the temple, and there was nothing left of it. Flavius Josephus says no one would have even known that a temple was there. It's like you go grab a big tree in the forest and lift it up, roots and all, and cart it away. You come back a couple thousand years later and say, where was the tree? You won't know. It's been destroyed down to the last stone. Well, if you go to Jerusalem today and say, hey, Mr. Tour Guide, tell me where this Roman fortress was. And they're going to say, well, we don't know. Well, it was comprised of several cities. Do you have anything of it? No. Nothing? No. Where do you think it looked like? I don't know. They have no idea. But we do know what Roman fortresses look like. They're rectangular. about 36, 37 acres. You go to Baalbek, and there's one exactly the same size as the Temple Mount. Okay, go to Syria, there's another one. This is a kind of a drawing of showing you what a Roman fort would look like, and it was big. They had restaurants and brothels and courts and places for the horses and for the stuff. You know, this is in Syria. Look at this. It's the exact same size as the Roman fortress that you just saw in that in this slide right here. Exact same in size. Okay, so this is taken from a textbook that shows you what that shows you what the temple looked like and the Roman fortress. So what they say is, well, this was the place of the temple and not a Roman fortress. This big square thing, it was the place of the temple. So they paint in a temple there and say that's where the temple is, up on the Temple Mount. Now we have the gold dome up there, right? They say that's where it is. Well, where's the Roman fort? Up, now this is 98% of all textbooks will have that drawn up there on the upper right hand. You see that red oval up there? That's what they say the Roman fort is. Josephus says it was comprised of several cities. Now, the size of the legion is 6,000 people with 4,000 support personnel. So over 10,000 people plus stuff shoved into a building about half the size of this church. It's ridiculous. That's about, what there is about 80 feet wide by about 300 feet. So that you couldn't have the 10th Roman Legion there because they had a lot of stuff. Hecadius now tells us, historians have been telling us where the temple is for years and no one's listened to them. Hecadius, the temple was nearly in the very center of the city of David. The city of David is 600 feet south of the Temple Mount. Right there, really close.
So, if the Vatican owns Temple Mount and it's their Roman Fort Antonia, then it makes perfect sense that when the third temple will be finally rebuilt, prophecy will be fulfilled about abomination of desolation, the man of sin, the Antichrist, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place.
The TSA is implementing some new screening measures after incidents involving Clear. The service is available at 53 U.S. airports and allows passengers to bypass long security lines. But as Chris Van Cleve explains, there are some new concerns about how safe and secure it is.
Tonight, a Clear crackdown is underway after at least 3 security breaches at airport checkpoints. Clear is a subscription service using biometrics to verify customers' identity, speeding them directly into security screening. But in at least 2 incidents this year, would-be flyers not enrolled in the program used it to go through TSA checkpoints without ever showing identification. In one case, the person used a boarding pass fished out of the trash. John Pistol is a former TSA administrator.
As we know, it only takes one bad actor to bring down a plane if they are a committed terrorist. So that is a concern.
Oh, you mean like with 9/11, where terrorists used box cutter knives to fly the planes into the Twin Towers? Absolutely ridiculous nonsense. It's all about more slavery, as usual, moving towards that Mark of the Beast digital system. You know the whole deal.
Now, TSA will soon require everyone, including verified Clear users, to show ID to TSA officers.
I mean, the whole reason for Clear is to just kind of easily breeze through, so it's just another added step. I might as well just go through regular check.
Jerika, in none of these incidents did somebody get through the security checkpoint to the point where they were able to board a flight. And in each case, they were stopped before they got through the security screening process, which, you know, is certainly what you would want to hear. The concern from the TSA, though, is that in 3 different incidents, you had people who didn't show identification, essentially, get into the security screening, which puts them one step away from being able to board an airplane.
Mm-hmm. Now, when will these new ID checks go into effect, and about how much time could they add to the Clear security process?
Well, so TSA is not laying out a clear timeline. We know that they have already ordered Clear to increase the frequency of the random ID checks. So if you're a Clear user, you may have already noticed when you go through there, you do the eye scan or the fingerprint scan, it matches you and then it says random ID check. That's going to become increasingly more common in the weeks and months ahead, until it's basically every single time you go through Clear, you're going to also have to show your driver's license or passport to the TSA officer